Conversations with Azu Ishiekwene.
Hello. Will President Bola Tinubu have an unlikely challenger in the 2027 presidential contest? Pointers in the news suggest a high probability that former President Goodluck Jonathan might be that unlikely candidate. Even though the former president has made no categorical declaration about another shot at the presidency, supporters are prodding, cajoling, and egging him on. Run, Jonathan, run, has become more or less a regular feature in the news. Will Jonathan run or will he flee? The suspense is worth waiting for. Welcome to Conversation with Azu, our weekly diary on life and politics. In our column today titled, Jonathan Won't Contest Again, Despite the Courts, we give you incontestable facts and logic as to why Jonathan will not run and why it will be in his best interest not to even try. Mr. Azu Ishiekwene, the writer of the column, is here to deepen our insights. Hello, Azu.
Thanks for having me once again, Junior. It's a pleasure to be here.
It was another great piece you penned, even though some of your friends and contemporaries like Dr. Ruben Abati might passionately disagree with you.
Oh, sure. I understand that. You know the phrase, run, Jonathan, run. I remember that 10, 11 years ago, it was go, Jonathan, go.
Okay.
Well, I think we have gone full cycle, haven't we? But it's okay. I mean, what I expressed this week's article titled "Why Jonathan Won't Run," whatever courts say, is based largely on the facts of his tenure as president for 5 years, from 2010, after the passing of former President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. Then, of course, he contested in 2011 and was defeated in 2015. So, and the facts are there. I mean, it's not just for me. I mean, I'm not despising the courts or taking it for granted that how the courts weigh in might affect his eventual decision to run or not to run. But I think that even more fundamental because, you know, as I also argued in my column, even though the PDP has been advised that there might be serious legal risk to President Jonathan running again, if PDP has anything, I don't think it's the common sense to avoid legal or any sort of serious landmines. So I argue on the basis of the record of former President Jonathan in office for the 5 years that he served, that the records do not favor him to run again the second time.
And you stated emphatically that our short memory is the reason why
absolutely.
Politicians take
yes,
Nigerians
absolutely.
for granted. So what have we forgotten about the
you know the thing they say about hindsight, you know. So obviously, because of the very difficult, I'm not saying that we're not in, of course, Nigerians are going through a pretty difficult time. And you know how it is that sometimes for somebody who's in a tough place, everything that looks like a straw, every potential life-saving thing that presents itself looks like
an option.
Looks like a straw that you can clutch, that you can grab. I think that's pretty much where we are. And I think there's also something about human nature sometimes that always thinks that, oh, the good old days. Well, what you make of today will tomorrow become part of the good old days. And we think that, oh, everything in the past was all nice, all rosy. No, I mean, fortunately, 15 years ago, it's not such a long time if we really bother to think and to reflect. Things have changed, of course, circumstances have changed, but the facts of our experience at that time, of our lived experience, are pretty much there for people who care to look at and to see.
Yeah, quite a close follow-up. You almost preempted me already. There's this nostalgia about the price of a bag of rice, the price of fuel pre-2015, and that's no memory loss. Or is it the wrong context?
Well, I think that it's okay. I mean, people say, oh, back then the price of bag of rice was 20,000 naira, bag 25,000 naira. Now how much? But I think we have just come to terms with the reality of our existence. I mean, I hope I will not sound a bit insensitive or harsh by saying that I think we're used to a fake life, and where the tire meets the road is about where we have found ourselves. The sort of so-called subsidy, the sort of subsidy that the government, was carrying at that time, especially on petrol and petrol products, was not sustainable. And it was just going to be a matter of time before, as I said earlier, before the tire meets the road. I mean, and it's the knock-on effect of those difficult decisions which ought to have been taken much earlier, but were not taken, that have now been taken, that we are grappling with.
And this fake life you mentioned, I remember in the early Buhari era, there was this agitation to bring back our corruption. And I mean, what is this fixation we have? What our citizens, with the past of that era that
it
can't really get out
yeah,
of.
no, I think it's a natural human instinct. You mentioned it, nostalgia. We'd like to feel very good and comfortable about the past. But I think if you stop and reflect a bit, you find that it really never was as rosy as we seem to think it was. We like to romanticize about the past, but I do not think that things. But if you look at what happened at the time we are talking about, the price of crude oil, which is a major foreign exchange earner for this country, was at some point about $120 per barrel, and Nigeria was. But what did all of that money go into? There were facts by some regulatory agencies at that time that the subsidy for going into petroleum products alone was in the order of about 3.9 trillion. And in 2013 alone, I think it was, the cost of that was about $8 billion, or for that year alone, the cost of subsidy. Now, that was the situation in which we found ourselves. And if you ask yourself, well, maybe the bag of rice was cheaper then than it is now, but the real benefit, the real long-term benefit of that, if you like, that windfall was not to the ordinary people. It was just a few, basically the elites, who were creaming off, exactly, who were creaming off all of that, and it was just a matter of time before we would face our demons. And I think that's just where we found ourselves now.
I remember an article you did in the run-up to the APC primaries, or in fact, after the APC primaries in 2022, presidential primaries, I mean, in which you stated that somehow former President Jonathan was waiting somewhere like a wild card waiting to be played as a potential candidate.
Indeed.
Is history about to repeat itself?
Well, indeed, I think, and I heard authoritatively at that time that his objection to, he had two major obstacles, during the primaries, before the 2023 election, when some people were thinking of drafting him, as we say, to the campaign. One, he didn't want to be interviewed by the panel. He wanted a waiver, and then also it seemed that former President Muhammadu Buhari was more disposed to the former Senate President Lawan than he was to him, and he didn't quite make up his mind time, and seemed obviously more to be disposed towards Lawan. Those were the two major, but he actually offered himself and was seen around, and he wanted to, if President Buhari had shown an inclination, given a nod in that direction, maybe a waiver would have been granted. So perhaps he wants to make it go again, but we'll see how that goes.
All right, we just take a breather from the question and answer session as I read you an excerpt from Azu's column. I quote, "Attempts to reform the power sector under Jonathan were mainly scams. Fake investors paid for government assets with hollow promissory notes or whatever the currency of cronyism could afford them. The deals were even sweetened by a government disbursed 213 billion naira to buyers to complete the scandalous transactions. We are still paying the price today, with insolvent power distribution companies claiming that government owes them about 14 trillion naira." End of quote. 4 trillion naira, I beg your pardon. Now, the main plank of those warning the former president to stay out of any contest is constitutional. Why do his supporters think that doesn't matter?
Well, not that they think that it doesn't matter. They think that the courts might grant a more liberal interpretation of that clause in his favor. I think that that's what they hope. So they know that it matters. But PDP being PDP, and those who are drafting him for reasons best known to them, would not mind.
And PDP has zoned the presidency to the south.
Oh yes, so, but he's not the only candidate in the south who will be qualified, obviously, to, as I said in my column also, Mr. Peter Obi, the former presidential. Yes, he belongs to the Labour Party. How long did it take him to port from PDP to the Labour Party? It doesn't take. It just takes a tweet and he's back in PDP if they think he has a chance. But I think he's sufficiently confused and trapped by his volatile, obedient base. I do not even think that this is in the record. And then the others, apart from the two that I have mentioned, the others are, they are just a need for the noise. I guess that I don't think that they know they don't really stand any chance other than these two that I have mentioned.
All right, my final question is, given the trend of identity politics in Nigeria, aren't you bothered that bricks will be hauled at you? You come from the region of the country where Jonathan comes from. Right?
Oh well, I'm used to it. I've done this thing for well over 35 years, and but yeah, I mean, identity politics is part of the current reality that we face. But I'm not hostage to such sentiments, to be honest. I would. If it's what I'm convinced about, I say it. And I do not say it because I'm from this or that region of the country. It really doesn't matter, because ultimately it's about the record. And if the facts still matter at all, that's what I have presented for those who care about the facts to reflect on.
All right. I will advise that we all strive not to be held hostage by identity politics. And if you like our content, this is just one variant of it. You can read the full text of the article on our website, ishiekwene.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our content. Thank you for coming on the show, Azu.
Thanks for having me.
Bye for now.